Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this moment of stillness. We are entering a remarkable stage of life, a chapter that we often refer to by the dignified titles of retirement or the golden age. Conventionally, this is meant to be the period of ultimate fulfillment, the peak of serenity, the sweet harvest after decades of sowing and struggling. The house has been built and the mortgage paid. The children are grown and settled. The chair you are sitting in, the garden you tend, or the distant journeys you are planning, all of this is compelling evidence of a successful life. And yet, if we are honest and still enough to truly listen, there is a certain bewilderment, a perplexing sense of unease that subtly lingers, like a faint mist. There is a silent, persistent question that echoes in this newly found quietude. A question we were always too busy to face. If I have attained everything, if I have met every societal benchmark of success, why do I still feel a part of me as empty or even fearfully confused? Throughout our lives, we were defined by the sturdy armor we wore, by the labels society assigned, the armor of the director, the engineer, the doctor, or the devoted parent. Your business card once defined you. Your role was the steady anchor in life's tumultuous sea. But now, that card has been filed away. The armor has been removed. And when you look in the mirror, you confront a stark, uncompromising question. Who am I when I no longer have anything to do? What am I when I am no longer useful? This, my friends, is the strangest and most profound paradox of old age. When we finally gain ultimate freedom, we simultaneously feel a deep sense of loss, a hollow in the soul. It is the loss of core identity. We spent 40, 50, even 60 years constructing an ego rigidly attached to action, to achievement, to doing something to validate our existence. And now, when doing something is no longer compulsory, that ego seems to dissolve, fading away like a thin wisp of smoke. The fear that accompanies this emptiness is entirely natural, but it is rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding. We fear meaninglessness. We fear the approaching death, not of the body, but of the role. We frantically fill this void with endless activities. Another trip, another volunteer project, anything to avoid confronting that chilling inquiry. Do I matter? What I want you to hear deeply today is this: that feeling of emptiness or loss is not a problem to be solved, but a signal to be welcomed, to be embraced. It is not the sound of an ending, but the sound of liberation. Liberation from a curse that we carried on our shoulders all our lives. The curse of having to prove our right to exist. Let us redefine this so-called retirement crisis. For most of our years, you participated in a magnificent game called building the ego through labor and achievement. That ego was a convenient structure, a solid ship that helped you navigate the challenging oceans of the material world. Yet, existential philosophy, alongside the deep wisdom of the East, points to one undeniable truth. What is built through effort, what is manufactured from instruments, must eventually be let go, must eventually dissolve. The loss of identity you feel now is not a setback or a failure. It is the logical, necessary consequence of having completed a major cycle of life. The game is over, and the wonderful part is, you played that game magnificently. You fulfilled your duties to society, family, and your own fierce ambition. What is truly happening is this: your working ego is collapsing. It collapses not because it is weak, but because it has become obsolete, no longer needed. Think of it as the natural process of a snake shedding its skin. The snake does not fail when it leaves the old skin behind. It does so because it has grown. The old skin has become too tight, too rigid to contain the new life. The emptiness you feel is precisely the sacred gap between the old skin and the new. It is the doorway to a new kind of freedom, freedom from the compulsion to be someone as defined by others. You are confronting a great transition, an inner revolution from doing to being. In the doing phase, your worth was measured by output and productivity. In this being phase, your worth is unconditional. It exists simply because you exist. A flower does not need to do anything to be beautiful. It simply blooms. Do not make the mistake of trying to find a new role, a new label, to paste over this void. Instead, sit down, be still, and look into that emptiness. Because in that stillness, in that void of non-doing, we will discover who you truly are, the one who was there before any title or job. We must delve into three significant philosophical reasons, three profound arguments that explain why the collapse of this working ego is the greatest liberation of your life. First, there is the trap of the past and the liberation from the compulsion to prove. The career, in a sense, is a social game whose first unstated rule is, you must constantly prove your worth. You must work harder, achieve more, to show yourself and others that you are times worthy, times of respect and success. Your entire life was a chain of actions driven by the need to prove, and then retirement arrives. The game is over. The greatest secret is this: you no longer need to prove anything. The deepest paradox is that many elders continue to carry this proving mentality into retirement. They feel guilty for spending a morning reading, or they worry about whether they are making the best use of their time. They are still caught in the trap of the past, where personal worth must always be attached to a specific verb. Imagine the story of a master potter. He created thousands of works in his lifetime. When he grows old, he no longer needs to sit at the wheel. He can sit quietly, drink tea, and simply watch the morning light. Does his worth diminish when he stops making pottery? No. That worth is now inherent in his very being. He is a potter, not because he is currently making pottery, but because he has made pottery, and he is the consciousness observing the craft. Retirement is the moment you step back and contemplate your greatest masterpiece, your life. You are free to do nothing and still be everything. This is the ultimate relief from the burden of having to be who others expected you to be. Second, we must recognize the wealth of leisure time, the true goal achieved. Let's be honest. Why do we work so relentlessly, sacrificing our youth, health, and relationships for the sake of our career? The ultimate goal of every job, every effort, every sacrifice will always boil down to one single thing: to buy back time. We work frantically, save rigorously, so that we can eventually rest, so that we can enjoy leisure and be free to do what we want. This is the essence of the famous parable of the fisherman and the businessman. The businessman visits a coastal village and finds a fisherman relaxing on the beach. He criticizes him. Why aren't you out fishing more? If you worked harder, you could buy more boats, start a company, and in 20 years, sell the company and retire, lying on the beach, just like you are now. The fisherman asked a profoundly philosophical question. But sir, I'm already lying on the beach. Why should I spend another 20 years trying to achieve what I'm already doing? You see, the final objective of all, striving the comfort of having leisure time, has now been granted to you freely, without condition. It is the greatest gift you receive after a lifetime of contribution. Do not waste this gift of leisure by trying to fill it with relentless activity, as though it were a void that must be occupied. Instead, let it be empty proudly and serenely. Embrace the absolute value of just being sitting in silence, watching the rain, listening to the wind, feeling the life flow through your veins. Your existence is already a miracle. It needs no further proof. Third, and perhaps the most crucial point, is discovering the real self in dissolution. When all the roles and identities are stripped away, like layers of clothing remove the title of director, the role of breadwinner, what truly remains? We fear answering this question. We are taught that without a role, we are nothing. But the perennial philosophy, from Zen to existentialism, states what remains is you, your true self, the pure consciousness. You are not your job. You are not your bank account. All those things are external shells, costumes that your consciousness wears to play the game of life. They are tools, not the user. Your true self is the subject of awareness. It is the one observing all the comings and goings of the world. It is the stillness behind the noisy thoughts. It is the light. It never changes, even as your outer roles collapse or are built. Imagine you are an actor who has finished your performance, a role that lasted 50 years. You remove the character's costume. Do you cease to exist? No. You simply return to being yourself, the actor. Now, you are taking off the career costume. And this is the greatest opportunity of your life to discover, are you the actor or merely the costume? If you allow time for stillness, if you permit the working ego to dissolve, you will begin to feel the presence of the true self, an unshakable tranquility. It cannot be articulated in words, and it certainly cannot be written on any business card. It is the infinite, unconditional wealth that you possessed all along, obscured by your constant busyness. This is when we realize that true wealth is having nothing left to prove and nothing left to lose. When you accept that everything external is temporary, you become absolutely free. Finally, we arrive at the conclusion, the invitation to trust the flow of life. We have reached the end of this meditative journey. And if there is one single message, one profound invitation I want to extend, it is this: trust this natural process. Embrace the dissolution with courage and serenity. Life, in its deepest philosophical sense, is not a problem to be solved or a battle to be won. Life is an eternal dance, a game played merely for the joy of playing. And a dance has no goal to be achieved at the end of the floor. A dance is simply the complete natural movement of itself. We, who are so accustomed to control, tend to look at our new life and ask, what did I do wrong? When we feel empty after achieving everything. The simple answer is, you did nothing wrong. That feeling of emptiness is not a deficit, but the necessary pause, the open space between the two great musical acts of your life. The first act, the act of doing and building identity, has concluded brilliantly. The second act, the act of being in contemplation, awaits you with absolute peace, no longer demanding effort. To enter this chapter fully, you must practice the art of letting go. First, let go of the need to be useful by society's old, worn-out definition. Usefulness is no longer measured by economic output. Your presence, your stillness, is enough. Second, let go of the worry about what others think of you now that you are no longer busy. External validation is now meaningless. And third, let go of the comparison between the you of today and the you of 20 years ago. The you of 20 years ago was a statue carved out of pressure and ambition. The you of today is a flowing river. Embrace the truth of this river. You are no longer an individual struggling to survive, struggling to prove your worth. You are life itself expressing. You are a perfect, magnificent part of the universe's function. A mountain does not need to try to be a mountain. An oak tree does not need to try to be an oak tree. It simply is. You are the same. Simply be who you are. So rest now. Take a deep breath and smile at the emptiness you feel, because it is opening the door to the very thing you have been searching for all your life. Freedom from yourself, freedom from the false ego. Accept the new truth. You have been liberated. Now, you are free to join the dance of life once more. But this time, you are not playing to win. You are playing purely for the joy, for the wonder of the game itself. If these reflections resonate with a hidden corner of your soul, please gently press the subscribe and like buttons so we can continue exploring the other mysteries of life together. Thank you for listening.